All rise. Oh yay, oh yay, oh yay. The United States District Court for the Middle District of Louisiana is now in session. Order and silence are hereby commanded. God save the United States and the Honorable Court. The Honorable Chief Judge Shelley D. Dick, the Honorable Judge Brian A. Jackson, the Honorable Judge John W. Duggarville, the Honorable Judge Scott D. Johnson, the Honorable Judge Richard J. Bourgeois, the Honorable Judge Aaron Wilder Dooms, the Honorable Judge Michael A. Crawford presiding.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Black History Month program. Please remain standing for the presentation of the colors, followed by the pledge.
Forward, march. March, side, march. Color guard, oh. Carry. Order, colors. Carry, colors. Forward, march. Left turn, march. Color guard, hold. Present, arm.
At this time, we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please remain standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the national anthem. Be seated. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 30th African American Heritage Month celebration celebrated by our court. We had a musical guest who was going to sing the national anthem and also do a musical piece later, and she unfortunately became ill this morning. So we tried to scurry together as quickly as we could, and I think we did a really good job. Thank you very much, Kel Martin. All right, this is the 30th year that the court and the courthouse agencies around the country and this particular court have gathered for this occasion. With me today, my colleagues on the bench are, to my right, Judge Brian Jackson, to my left, Judge John DeGravels, all the way to the right, Judge Michael Crawford, and seated on the front row are Magistrate Judge Richard Bourgeois, Judge Aaron Wilder Dooms, and Judge Scott Johnson. We are pleased to have all of you here today. It is an auspicious occasion. The theme of this year's program, and I think you're in for a real treat with our speaker, is Banneker's Letter and the Geography of Opportunity. We are honored to have with us Dr. William Tate the Fourth, the Louisiana State University president. We also have here today students from Estruma Magnet High School who are seated in the jury box and the Estruma Magnet School's color guard. At this point, the court will turn things over to Judge Brian Jackson, who will serve as today's master of ceremony and recognize several invited guests, as well as leading us through today's program. Judge?
Thank you so much, Chief, and welcome everyone to, as Chief Judge Dick mentioned, is our 30th year celebrating Black History Month. Now, we're not the only ones who have celebrated Black History Month all these years, but certainly in our courthouse, it's been about 30 years now. We have joined, that is the court, joined with our federal partners, our agency partners, to honor and recognize the incredible and important achievements of African Americans in building our nation. Now, this commitment to celebrate Black History Month, as I mentioned, goes back quite a while. In fact, back to 1926, when the noted historian Carter G. Woodson, himself the direct descendant, the son of enslaved people, earned his PhD from Harvard. Indeed, he was the second African American to earn a PhD from Harvard, the first being Dr. E.W.B. Du Bois. But it was Dr. Woodson who suggested that we celebrate the contributions of African Americans to the development and building of our nation. And he proposed then what we called back then Black History Week. In 1976, this notion of a Black History Month was actually embraced by President Gerald Ford, who called on all Americans to, quote, seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our nation's history. Now, again, here in our courthouse, by the way, this courthouse itself is about 31 years old now. Later this year, we will celebrate 31 full years of this magnificent courthouse that, in my view, still looks like it's brand new. But for 30 years now, again, we've been celebrating Black History Month. So how did it all begin? Well, I'll tell you. At around 1990, President George Herbert Walker Bush issued an order for all U.S. government executive branch agencies, not necessarily the judiciary, to hold Black History Month programs. Now, here in this district, the U.S. Attorney's Office at the time did not do so. However, in 1995, the U.S. Attorney at the time, L.J. Email, decided that it was time for us to sort of come into compliance with the Department of Justice mandates on these things. And so at the time, I served as his first assistant, as we call it, his chief assistant. And he called me in and he said, Brian, we need to celebrate Black History Month. What are your thoughts? Who should we bring in? And only one person came to mind back then, a fellow by the name of Brace Godfrey. Several of you here knew Brace. I will tell you that Brace Godfrey was exceptional in every way. Brace and I attended law school together. We were dear friends. We were study group partners together throughout law school and even for the bar exam. He was one of the most intellectually gifted persons I've ever known. He was the kind of person who always finished number one in his class and always excelled at everything he did. After graduating law school, he became, among other things, the first African-American lawyer to serve as the managing partner of a major Baton Rouge law firm when he became the managing partner of the Adams and Reese law firm. He later became the president of what was then called the Baton Rouge Chamber of Commerce, now called the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. And so, again, he was just absolutely exceptional. The thing he was most proud of was serving as the founding president of the 100 Black Men of Metro Baton Rouge. So it was an easy call for me to suggest to Judge Email, because U.S. Attorney Email is a retired state judge, that we should bring Brace Godfrey in. And of course, he accepted quite graciously, and on short notice, I might add, our invitation. We assembled not here in this magnificent ceremonial courtroom, and thank you so much, Judge DeGravel, for allowing us to use your courtroom again, but we assembled downstairs on the first floor in the jury assembly room. His remarks that day were remarkable. He described and provided his analysis of these Jeffersonian principles of democracy and the court's role in ensuring individual liberties and civil rights. It was a remarkable speech, and everyone in attendance was just motivated, spellbound by his speech. The next day, I received a call from then Chief Judge John Parker's assistant, summoning me to his chambers. I wasn't sure what to expect, I must tell you. And when I went into his chambers, Judge Parker greeted me with a broad smile, and he told me how much he really enjoyed the program. And he declared at that time, he said, Brian, from now on, this will be an official courthouse-wide annual event. We will celebrate Black History Month every year in this courthouse as long as I'm the chief judge. That small, modest event has now become the most well-attended event here in our courthouse. And it's been very important to every federal judicial officer who has had the privilege of serving in this district, every judge, and especially the chief judges. It's worth noting that Chief Judge Polozola, Chief Judge Tyson, certainly when I was the chief judge, supported this, and especially Chief Judge Dick. And so we're grateful to all of them and all of the federal judicial officers who have joined us and who have promoted this program. Now, over the past 30 years, we've had the honor of having a number of very just gifted, wonderful speakers who, like Brace, was both instructive and inspiring in their remarks. We've had Ruby Bridges, the first African-American girl to desegregate the New Orleans public schools in 1960, and of course is the subject of a very famous Norman Rockwell painting and movies from Disney and that sort of thing. We've had Alan Toussaint, the celebrated songwriter. We've had Louisiana State Police Colonel Henry Whitehorn, who's now the sheriff of Caddo Parish in Shreveport. We've had Mark Morial, the president of the National Urban League, and A.P. Turo, who was the very first black student to attend and be enrolled into LSU in 1953. Those are just a few. We also have a couple here today who have joined us. Major Reggie Brown, thank you for joining us today. You and your bride are here. And I think Sylvia Witherspoon is here. Thank you so much, one of our former speakers. Thank you so much for joining us here today. But we are also joined by Judge Email. Judge Email, thank you for your role in getting this whole thing started. We really appreciate you being here today. Sadly, we lost Brace back in 2010 unexpectedly, and it was a big loss, not just for those of us who counted him among our dearest friends, but also this entire Baton Rouge community. But his son Trey is with us. Trey, are you here today with us? Trey, thank you so much for being here. Again, you know how much your dad meant to all of us here. Let me acknowledge several folks who are here, including members of our courthouse community. We have Mr. Ron Gath, our United States Attorney. We also have our clerk of the bankruptcy court, Mr. Jody Jersico, thank you. We also have our chief deputy clerk of court, Ms. Attorney Tara Madison. Mr. Marshall, our Marshal, Bill Brown is with us today. And I'll also point out today, we're so thrilled to be joined by retired bankruptcy judge Doug Dodd. So thanks to you all for joining us. You know, as we always do, we like to recognize some of the persons who have joined us here today. So very briefly, before we get into the program, let me just thank and acknowledge, again, several who are here with us today. Dean Alana Allen of LSU is here with us. Thank you so much, Dean, for joining us today. Reverend Chris Andrews, I don't think Reverend Andrews has missed one of these programs in probably 20, 25 years, so thank you. Reverend Renee Brown, is Reverend Brown here? Reverend Brown has been with us for a number of times, 20 years plus. Don Caju, the former U.S. Attorney, I believe, is here. Mr. Caju, are you here? Thank you for your presence here. Attorney Linda Law Clark, former president of the Baton Rouge Bar Association, is here. Professor William Corbett with the LSU Law School is here. Thank you, Professor, for joining us here. Pastor Fred Jeff Smith has been here for, I can't believe how long it's been now. Reverend, thank you so much for joining us here today. Mr. Todd Sterling, who has been kind enough to help our court on a number of occasions with different things. Chancellor Sean Vance at the Southern University Law Center. Chancellor, are you here today with us? Okay, thank you, Sean. Chancellor Vance. Sorry about that. He's a good friend of mine. I just called him Sean, but thank you so much, Chancellor, for being here. And I got to tell you, we have a couple of members of the LSU board with us. Mr. James Williams, thank you, Mr. Williams, for all you've done for LSU during your time. And of course, Collis Temple is also on the board. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Judge Temple, for getting him in a jacket to be here today. We got to take a picture of this. And finally, I'll mention Mr. Michael Jefferson, Deacon Michael Jefferson, who just joined us. He is a retired assistant U.S. attorney and for several years chaired the committee. So thank you, Deacon Jefferson, for joining us today. So at this time, I will turn it over to Judge Bourgeois, who will introduce do we have are we playing we're going to do that now? The video now? All right. So, So why don't we, yes.
You're taking my words out of my mouth, but it may not surprise you with our last-minute pivot. We have prepared a slideshow presentation that celebrates the rich history of this event over the last 30 years. It is set to music. You can probably guess the first song.
Our new national anthem.
So I won't spoil it for anyone, but Mr. Martin?
Jan and Daryl.
All right. Thank you, Cal. Thank you, Judge. A couple of other folks I want to recognize before I turn it over to Judge Johnson. We're joined today by a couple of other folks that I wanted to recognize. I mentioned earlier about Chief Judge John V. Parker's role in this ceremony. We're joined today by Judge Parker's grandson, John. Why don't you? I'm not trying to embarrass you, John, but thank you. We also have one of our bankruptcy trustees, Dwayne Murray. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Murray. David Rubin is here. Many of you know that his father, Judge Alvin Rubin, who was just a terrific judge from Baton Rouge, served on the Fifth Circuit. Thank you for your support over the years. Scott Kirkpatrick at the Baton Rouge General. By the way, he can give you a pass if you ever have to go to the emergency room. His pass will make sure that you get seen and treated within 5 minutes, right, Scott? You can make that happen, Scott. Right. So thank to all of you. And finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize the president of the Federal Bar Association. You know, as federal judges, we don't have lobbyists, which is probably a good thing, but we have to work with our partners among the bar to sometimes be our mouthpieces. And we're proud of our association in partnership with the Federal Bar Association. And so we're joined today by Tara Johnston, our president. Thank you so much, Tara, for joining us here today. At this time, I'll turn it over to Judge Johnson.
Thank you. It is my job to welcome and introduce today a group of students who joined us from Estruma Magnet High School. They're seated in the jury box over here. Estruma Magnet High School is located in Mid-City, and there's a magnet component at the high school which focuses on academic honors and broadcasting. Students at Estruma have the opportunity to enroll in dual enrollment classes and obtain an associate's degree upon graduating. Estruma's goal is to prepare all students to become successful, productive citizens who are marketable in today's workforce. Included in our Estruma students are representatives of their junior ROTC program. The ROTC program was formed in 2018, and just last year in 2024, the ROTC program was awarded its first Gold Star, recognizing it as an honor unit of distinction and one of the finest junior ROTC programs in our school system. Estruma's Army JROTC is a structured class that helps develop high school students into leaders while teaching them skills that will help them in all their classes. Cadets learn about their community, their school, and how to be better citizens of our great nation. The cadets at Estruma Magnet High School are part of a team of motivated young men and women seeking to make a positive difference. And so to you all, I say welcome. I'm so glad you could join us for this program. And to our color guard, thank you so much for adding that important part, getting us started with such dignity and solemnity. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Judge. At this time, it's the moment we've all been waiting for, and I will turn now to Judge DeGrabble, who introduced our keynote speaker.
Well, welcome everyone. And when I was given the honor of introducing Dr. Tate, first thing I did was look at his resume. And I have to tell you, I was blown off my feet. I could not believe it. I asked myself after I looked at his resume, is there some achievement that Dr. Tate hasn't accomplished? Is there some award that he hasn't been given? And the answer was very few, very few. For those of you who know that Dr. Tate is the president of LSU, what you may not know is that he's the president of the LSU system, not only the chief executive officer for the main campus here in Baton Rouge, but he's the chief executive officer for the medical school in New Orleans, the medical school in Shreveport, all of the satellite campuses at LSU, and the Pennington Biomedical Research Center. And in his job as the chief executive of LSU, I'll give you some of the few accomplishments that he's made. He has set records in the enrollment at LSU. He has set records in the total graduates graduating from LSU. He has set records in the research expenditures at LSU. set records in the philanthropic investments at LSU, and to show you that he's not purely an academic up in the ivory tower. He has gotten more money from the Louisiana legislature than any other president at LSU. And we just cannot tell you how happy and excited and lucky we are to have him at LSU. Not only he has all these administrative duties that he is carrying out so successfully, but I was very interested to learn that he has faculty appointments, and listen to these disciplines, these different disciplines that he has faculty appointments in: sociology, psychiatry and behavioral sciences, epidemiology, and population and public health. In addition to all of those things that he does, again, I talked about the awards that he's received. These are just a few of the awards Dr. Tate has received during his career. The Presidential Citation, Distinguished Scholar Award in Mathematics Education, the Distinguished Contribution Education Research Lifetime Achievement Award, the Benjamin Benneker Association Lifetime Achievement Award for his contributions to mathematics education. So, as I say, Dr. Tate, we're lucky to have you at LSU, and we are exceptionally lucky to have you as our speaker today. Let's welcome William F. Tate IV.
Thank you for the generous introduction. Chief Judge Dick, thank you for allowing me to be here in your courtroom, and to your judicial colleagues, thank you for welcoming me here. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here with you all. I must say, when I realized it was told us the 30th anniversary of this event, it's quite special to me. As I looked at the storied list of individuals who have spoken, I was really moved that I stand on the ground that they were on. It's really special to me. This is no offense to anyone else, but I was extremely proud to follow up some members of my beloved Alpha Phi Alpha, and as well as fellow archons from Sigma Pi Phi who have distinguished themselves in this community and more broadly across this country. I will say that it is quite special in Louisiana. I really love Louisiana because only in Louisiana can a chief judge announce that the national anthem is going to be sung and Louis Armstrong comes on. It's just amazing to me. I have to be frank. And then you followed up, and just an emotional moment for me when you followed up with Bill Withers, which was my father's favorite music, and I grew up with that. It just moved me. So what you're about to hear today will really, truly come from the heart, because that's what he would have wanted me to do with you all today. And so I do have a title for this talk, Banneker's Letter and the Geography of Opportunity. And it was very important that Judge Jackson, who I want to thank you as well for the invitation and encouraging me to be part of this, mentioned Jeffersonian principles. I thought that was quite timely, because I wondered if he had maybe heard from the Holy Spirit that I was going to talk about Thomas Jefferson today. In fact, Thomas Jefferson is how I'm going to begin my remarks. Thomas Jefferson, in 1781, wrote something called the Notes on the State of Virginia. I recommend it to all young people. It is extremely important for understanding the United States of America. He finished writing them in about 1785. Now, this is important history, because during this time, they were commissioning the development of Washington, D.C., that is our leaders. And they hired a foreigner, or a global person, a Frenchman, to do it. And he began working on it, and he had a person who was assisting him on the matter, an outstanding mathematician, an astronomer, and a man of science, Benjamin Banneker. And as it would have it, the Frenchman fell out with the people who were leading this, and he quit. And then the only one standing was Banneker. And Banneker said to them, "Do not worry. I will take care of it. He had to memory every single thing they had designed. And because he was an astronomer of the highest order, I want you all to understand something. We have something called GPS now, right? You all know about GPS, all your iPhones, GPS. It's all digital, right? Banneker's mind was a GPS. He literally, because he was a man of science, had navigated and understood the celestial stars in the most impressive manner. Now, today, we use satellites. His was in his head, in his work ethic. Banneker worked with mechanical clocks in the cycles of the stars to understand how to put those streets together. Today, we have atomic clocks that use satellite, but it was in his mind, you see. Banneker used triangulation. He had angle measurements and fixed reference points. Today, we use satellites and signal delay to figure that out. It was in his mind, though. It was in his mind. Banneker understood physical boundaries, stones, land surveys. He did everything by hand. Unbelievable fellow. Today, we use digital geographic information system boundary mapping, but it was in Banneker's head. Banneker had manual adjustments based upon observations of the stars. Today, we use error correction algorithms of the highest order, big-time data science. It was in his head. Well, back to Jefferson. As he was writing those letters, he penned some things that are important for my remarks today. The first thing Banneker talked about that Jefferson talked about that is extremely important. Jefferson was one of the first individuals to really articulate that schools, in particular universities, should, and he used this language, go and rake the rubbish from the Commonwealth and find the smartest people and bring them to UVA. Prior to that, only the most affluent and landowners would even be thought about going to college. He believed that there were smart people in communities that should have access as well. This was a radical idea. Radical idea. But Jefferson had other things to say that are related to his conversations ultimately with Banneker. He said this, and I'm going to quote it because I'm in a court of law and I don't want to be I got to be careful here. This is what Jefferson said. Comparing them by their faculties of memory, reason, and imagination, it appears to me that in memory, they are equal to whites. In reason, much inferior, as I think one, and he's talking about blacks, could scarcely be found capable of tracing and comprehending the investigations of Euclid. Now, some of you might not know who Euclid is. Euclid was a famous mathematician known for his geometry. If you've taken geometry at your high school, you've been studying Euclid. You're on point. In other words, Jefferson began to characterize humanity in important ways. And one of the ways he characterized a human was someone who could do math. Because if you could not do math in his mind, you weren't human. Because to be human ultimately is to be able to reason. Correct? You all following me? This was a profound statement by one of the founders. It's unbelievable. Now, remember, this is published in the 1780s. Then enter Banneker to Washington, D.C. And I've already given you what he's done. Now, Banneker and Jefferson never formally met. But Banneker wrote Jefferson. And he wrote him a letter, and it's quite powerful. And I don't have time because Judge Jackson told me I only had a few minutes. So I'm going to call out some highlights. In Banneker's letter, he told Jefferson, he said, I want you to look back at the almost forgotten sorrows of those days. And he's talking about the American Revolution. How if you just reflect on it, you will understand the guilt you ought to feel about the position you have my people in. And Jefferson responded back in his letter. He said, "Nobody wishes more than I do to see such proofs that nature has given to our black brethren talents equal to those of other colors of men." In other words, he's not answering Banneker directly. He's saying, my guy, you're super bright. But that doesn't mean I'm getting ready to change public policy. You following me? He acknowledged him because Banneker not just only sent him a letter, he sent him his almanacs. It's stunning to me that Jefferson goes on to say, "You're so bright, I'm going to send your almanacs over to France," because Jefferson really believed the French were the top people in science. "I'm going to send it to the leader of the Academy of Sciences at Paris, and their leading philanthropic society, because I believe you are worthy of entry into the Academy of Science." So those of us who work in universities, the highest honor you can have is if you're admitted to like the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the national academies. That's what you want. That's your peers telling you how bright you are. He's telling him he's that good, but he also says to him in very clear terms, the state of affairs of your people, unfortunately, will not change under my leadership. It's an unbelievable exchange. If you've never had it, and you probably haven't in your history books, you ought to read it. It's one of the most telling that I've ever seen. So why am I talking to you about this? What does this have to do with anything? Well, the two men are brilliant. Brilliant men. I don't know how, I hope you all can see this. Those of you who have bad seats, I'm sorry, you should have been here earlier. But the realities are, these two men are actually debating about opportunity. They're debating about freedom. They're debating about what is opportunity in a free society. Now, I happen to study that. So it's timely that I'm going to bring this up to you. You know, if you come from university, you have to have a theory, right? You're not worth anything if you don't have a theory to test. So here's my theory. There's something in America that those two men were talking about. It's called the geography of opportunity. Every one of you has something in common. You were born in a zip code. We created that, by the way, very mathematical. Indeed. Banneker organized that kind of thinking. You're born in a community. Your community has a school. We're here right now. You have a school in your community, right? Got to have it. There's a relationship between the community and the school. If the relationship is positive, very good things happen. You end up in post-secondary education or some form of advancement to advance your skill set. And then you end up in the workplace, and you begin adding value. It's called taxes, political support. You can support your family. And the way it works in the United States of America, whatever zip code you're born in, if you're in one of the ones that's very positive, you tend to go back into one that's very similar, and it's a very positive production function. It's quite amazing. Now, if you happen to be born in a community where the relationship between the schools and the community is not as robust, not as strong, there's a less likelihood of you actually making it into post-secondary education. A higher probability that you will drop out, which has tremendous social costs related to human capital, your own individual talent loss, the lost tax revenue, because if you're not working, you can't pay taxes. And of course, you're not likely to engage in voting and engaging in your community or being a baseball coach in the neighborhood, all the kinds of things that tend to happen with people when they're in the positive side of this deal. This happens over and over and over and over again in the United States of America. Literally, when Banneker and Jefferson were talking, they were in an intense debate about this. And that was in the 1700s. You see, you're on an archaeological dig of conversations about opportunity. You're standing on it, every single one of you. And this particular deal if it's not intervened on in in specific ways, it doesn't change. And it's very costly. Now, I'm big time geek. I own it. I love science. I'm not embarrassed to say it. That's who I am. I just love it. So I tend to measure communities based upon whether or not they have people who are born in them who invent things and create patents. That's how I judge you. Great community has a lot of people who produce patents. Not so great, not a lot of patents. Why? Because I like people who have ingenuity. That's the American way. We're built on a whole concept of being ingenious, being smarter and better and more innovative than everyone else. And wherever that happens, those are the best communities. I'm saying it right here, so you all can debate with me afterwards. Now, I want you to look at this map. This is not a political map. That blue is not Democrats. Okay, and there's no red here. It's just the Mason-Dixon line, and you can imagine where it is. And if you look at it, there's white and dark blue. There's white and dark blue. The darker the blue, the more patents produced in those communities. And if you see Louisiana, there's not a lot of blue there. There's not a lot of blue. I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm talking about patent production. Okay? That means something. What do you think it means? We've got work to do. We're not producing a lot of people. I'm going to go back in the slides. Why aren't we? Because this cycle dictates what happens here. If we want to be collectively, and building off the history of it all, a great community, we have to increase the number of people producing patents. And we've got to intervene in the cycle of opportunity. So, what do we know about communities where patents are produced? They tend to have attributes that I don't think anybody could disagree with. They tend to have very high-performing K-12 schools, particularly in math and science. That's what those communities with all the blue have. They tend to have more social mobility. It doesn't matter where you're born, you can get out of it. Your chances of actually escaping poverty are very, very high in the communities where people are producing patents. Very high. In other words, there's something there that intervenes on that cycle of opportunity, that geography of opportunity. They tend not to be segregated, these places. They tend to have fewer low opportunity areas, and they tend to have a lot of kids who get a chance to have innovative careers. I heard you all about your experiences in your magnet environment. That's what we need. More of that, more of that. The more of that you have, the better, right? Because that's what Banneker and Jefferson were talking about. Now, Jefferson said there are people who are smart in every community. We need to find them and give them an education. That's all I'm talking about right now. It's really amazing if we could do that in Baton Rouge, what would happen? Now, I'm supposed to be talking about history, right? So I better stop. But I'm sorry, I'm an epidemiologist, I have to figure it out. What's happening with our population? We know there are fewer kids being born of 18-year-old. College going is declining across the country. It's really kind of stagnant here in Louisiana. We don't have a lot, so we're the orange color. That's slow growth in terms of college-age students, college going through 2029. So if we really want this to work, parish by parish, we've got to find these kids. We've got to find them if we want to adhere to what Banneker and Jefferson were talking about. Right? Got to find them. It's going to be hard. Now, in another life, I used to be a scientist all the time. That's all I did. And in that life, I asked a question. I said, so what can we do in the United States of America to get more people to take more math and science? And if we do, what happens to them? Well, strangely enough, in the 1980s, state by state, including Louisiana, changed their graduation requirements for high school and increased the standard in terms of number of math and science courses students had to take. But I want to ask you also, how many people run a business in the room? A few of you all. So in your business, if you decide you want to increase production Do you just declare, I'm going to increase production, and it happens? That's called a fairy tale. So the way you increase production is you have to intervene somehow on the production process if you're engineering, right? So I'm giving you a precursor. So in the United States, we mandated more people had to take more math and science. That was a study we did. So these are the pictures of the colors, the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, right? State level science requirements combined. The darkest blue denotes the requirement of the highest number of math and science requirements. You'll notice that Louisiana was pretty robust in terms of more requirements. It's a big deal, right? They asked for greater production in Louisiana, and really all across the state, all across the United States. We asked for greater production. What did we do to get it? In other words, we declared in our business model, we want greater production in terms of students who know math and science. Have you all heard of any major interventions that ever happened across the United States that would warrant you to believe that we would get greater production of students who actually knew math and science, other than declaring that's what we want? No, nothing happened. We just declared that's what we want. That's a fairy tale. We did nothing to say we want better teachers. We did nothing to say we're going to build better facilities, or you name whatever public policy you want that you think might actually change the production. We didn't do any of that. We just declared we wanted more. So what happens when you put more pressure on the system to do something better, but you don't do anything? There are unintended consequences, right? That's what public policy is. It's what you intend to happen, and then the unintended things. Unintended, correct? I know I'm with lawyers, so I know you all know, right? There's always the unintended. So let's look at what happened. This is millions of kids. This is, like I said, when I was a high-flying epidemiologist. We have millions of young people in this data set looking at the United States of America. I won't bore you with all that. But the outcome variables of what happened. Did they drop out of school when we increased the requirements? Did they actually enroll in college? Because that was the theory of action. If we have more kids take more math, more are going to go to college. Or did they get a college degree? So here's what happened. By demographic group, if we look at the dropout rates, over time, the overall dropout rate was, a little over 10%. A larger percentage of African-American men dropped out. Those are the Bannekers of the world. A large percent of black women dropped out. Hispanic men dropped out of scale. Tough business. Tough business. What we learned is the highest graduation requirements in math and science was equated with about a 1% increase in dropout rate for all likely non-movers. In other words, we control for what state you're in. So if you stayed in your state, there's about a 1% greater chance that you would drop out. And the greatest increases for a dropout were Hispanic and black men, almost 2% for black men and almost over 2.5% for Hispanic men. So you might not even know what that means, but I'm in a court of law, correct? You all deal with a lot of people, don't you? All kind of folks coming here. I'm sure Judge Temple, you deal with a lot of folks, correct? A lot of them have this background. They dropped out of school. So we increased the requirements, and more black men dropped out, and more Hispanic men dropped out. So what does that really mean? Well, a 1% increase in high school graduation rate leads to about 100,000 fewer crimes across the U.S. per year. So that dropout costs us 100,000 crimes, 100,000 more crimes happening on average. It's 373 fewer murders. 300, that's a lot of people. Almost 8,000 fewer assaults. If you adjust for inflation, it's about $2.3 billion per year it costs us. To raise the requirements where we did nothing to help anybody get better but raise the requirements, and the people dropped out. That's not what Banneker and those folks were talking about. They were talking about real opportunity. So, this one's the most painful part of the story. So the benefits of a high school graduate vary depending on who you are. So if you dropped out, it varied between the cost being between $53,000 and almost $400,000. $53,000 to $400,000. So here's how come there's variation. It's Black History Month, so I need to break things down by demographic group. If a white woman drops out, it costs society about $53,000 in benefit. If a black man drops out, it costs society about $400,000 because they go to jail. And you got to pay for that, every one of you. So, Banneker has something right. Jefferson had something right. They had it right. They were getting close. Now, this geography of opportunity, I think you get it. What I'm saying is if you don't intervene somehow on this production function, every time you see a kid drop out, you could just put a cost to it. It's real money. It's going to cost us all. And it also costs them personally. It's not just a statistic. It's a real human being. I told you what it's going to cost you on crime. You all don't deal with crime in this court, do you? Oh, you do? I'm sorry. The realities are there are some people who come here who shouldn't be here if we had actually intervened between 1980 and 2000 and really did something to help people have a better education. Shouldn't be here. So what can we do? All right, I got to be quick. So I'm the president of LSU. It's a great job, y'all, on most days. And most people know about LSU because of sports. It's one of the greatest sports regimes in this country. By regime, I mean a public-private partnership. Public-private entities come together, and they come to Tiger Stadium, and it's just amazing, right? Some of y'all love Kim Mulkey. It's just amazing. You go and you see it in Angel and Flage. Just unreal stuff, right? Public-private investment makes that regime happen. Like, we can actually work together publicly and privately to put together that kind of regime and push forward an agenda. It's spectacular. Now, we've also been spectacular at some other kind of regimes, and I've sort of alluded to it. There are public-private partnerships that led to the fact that we don't have the production of individuals producing patents. Those were segregation regimes. We organized ourselves publicly and privately to segregate folks, and you don't get patent production, and that cycle of geographic opportunity manifests itself over and over again, and it costs us greatly. But we organized those. Those aren't just, that's not haphazard business, okay? I have a question on this Black History Month. Why can we not organize ourselves as a people, all of us here in Louisiana, parish by parish, to protect the brain from conception until a child moves into adolescence and call it a brain regime? And that's all we're in the business of. We're protecting the brains of our people. And if we did that, what would it look like? Well, there are a lot of things we could do. We know about, what happens with preschool. We know about what happens with health insurance for families. We know what happens when we take seriously math and science. We know what happens when we organize ourselves so people have access to food. Cognition is foundational to math and science. If you can't think because you haven't eaten, you're not going to do math and science. Not going to happen. Not at scale. Like, could we deal with those kinds of realities? Could we deal with all the people who've been pushed out of school because we did nothing for 30 or 40 years? And they're just floating around here. What are we doing for them? Why don't we protect the brain? Sports regimes are funny business because you have instantaneous feedback. Kelly won. Brian Kelly won today. Kim Mulkey won today. Yay! I'm excited about that. Here's my money. I'm with it. Brain regimes happen person by person over long horizons. You don't get the same dopamine popping in your head because you decided you're going to invest in somebody's life and help them. You just don't get the same feedback system neurologically. But we've got to find a way because we've been told by our founders, Jefferson and Banneker, that's what we should be doing. Alas, I'm not off the hook. You know, I look at you all over there. You know, you had 91 people in your graduating class last year. Did y'all know that? In 2021, from your high school, not a single person went to LSU in 2021. Did y'all know that? 2021, not a single person from Struma went to LSU. When I got this job, I asked my team, I said, run the numbers. I'm a statistician. What high schools in Metro Baton Rouge have never sent any kids to LSU or not sending kids to LSU? We found 5 high schools like that. I'm an epidemiologist. I find the problem, find it, right? We created something called the Future Scholars Program. That's my version of the brain regime. 5 high schools, never sent anyone. Last year, we had 82 students from those 5 high schools come to us. We started mentoring with them with an undergraduate student, talking to them about college while they're in their senior year. 72 of them applied. 72 of them, 82 were in the program, 78 were admitted to LSU. They have an average GPA of a 3.6. In one summer, they raised their ACT scores 4 points. People say that stuff's not, you can't modify it. Yes, you can. It's just a test. It's modifiable. It's a brain regime. Now, do you know how many students from your high school are at LSU, from that class from last year? 9. You had 91 graduate, 9 are there. Outstanding students. We now have started in middle school, and we're going to build cohorts from middle school all the way up to if they want to get a PhD, 80 a year. What's insane about this, we planned for 72 to get admitted, you know, about 72, 80, 82 to be admitted or whatever. Of those 5 high schools, it ended up being 120 ended up coming to LSU. Some of them without even our money. They just said, my classmates go in there, I could do it too. Why not? I've got a 3.8. That's the brain regime. You know, I'm going to end like this because I can tell y'all getting tired. I've been talking about a brain regime. Do you all know what the professional is who is paid the most money dealing with the brain? I know it's neuroscientists. But there's another professional. They're called psychometricians. Do you all know who they are? Psychometricians. Psychometricians are the psychologists who design tests. They design the tests. You know, like the ACT, the SAT, we're here, the LSAT, that wonderful exam you all sat for. Those are psychometricians who design those. They understand the brain cognition, they create the tests, and they figure out if they're fair and whether or not they can be used over and over again, and reliability, all those kinds of things. Psychometricians. Well, I had a friend who was a psychometrician, one of the most brilliant statisticians I know. One Halloween, she decided she was going to pave her driveway the day before Halloween. All of us said, what are you doing? Don't do that. Don't do it. She's like, no, it's going to be okay. I'm going to put signs up, and blah, blah, blah. It's going to be all right. You know. What are you going to do? It's a statistician, right? So needless to say, the day after Halloween, we all came by, and you saw, you know, what you think, you know, footprints and things like that. And, you know, we all said, we told you, don't do it. She said, you know, I like my students and children and neighbors in the abstract, not the concrete. And too many of us like our neighbors in the abstract. We like our children in the abstract. We like everybody in the abstract. And what I'm saying to you today is we're in the concrete business. Let's get after it. Thank you. Am I dismissed?
Not just yet. But that was phenomenal, Doc. Thank you so much for that. This was so inspirational and instructional, and I got to tell you, we can't thank you enough. I will ask at this time Judge Wilder Dooms to make a few, recognize certain folks.
Okay, thank you, Judge. I'm gonna recognize you last, so you just gotta stay up here with me though. So it is my privilege to recognize the individuals who lent their talents to our Black History Month program today. I do want to say that I offered to lend my musical stylings to the event, but the judges decided that perhaps my talents were better used elsewhere. So I'm going to present these certificates, and definitely one to our fabulous speaker, Dr. Tate. But first, I wanted to recognize the individuals who are here from Estruma. So will Master Sergeant Starlot Boyd come forward from the JRTC? All right, then I have Miss Shernell Jackson from Estruma High School student body. All right, and last but certainly not least, I was so moved by Dr. Tate's remarks, and he did such a fabulous job. So please give him another round of applause for being here.
Thank you so much, Judge. At this time, I would ask all of us to rise for the retiring of the colors.
Right shoulder, arms, forward, march. Left turn, march. Color, hold. Post. Right turn, march. Forward, march. March time, march. Good arm, hold. Forward, arm. Forward, march.
Please be seated. As our program draws to a close, I want to thank all of you for joining us here today. A couple of folks also I'll recognize, Mr. Michael Bailey, who's been here also for about 25 years. Thank you. Mike retired from the Department of Transportation and Development. And another of our former U.S. attorneys, Colonel Walter Green. Thank you so much. He was a big supporter of this program during his time as U.S. Attorney. So thank you, Colonel, for joining us here today. Again, I want to thank Dr. Tate for such enlightening remarks. Doctor, you were truly remarkable, and we know how busy you are, and we can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us today. And certainly on behalf of Chief Judge Dick and all of my colleagues, I want to thank all of our partners here in the federal courthouse, as of course the students in the ROTC from Estruma High School. We are grateful to you as well. I have to recognize the folks that put all this together, that is the members of our planning committee, Miss Trinikia Augustus, Elizabeth Breida, Jay Broussard, Chastity Bird, Susie Edwards, Kel Martin, Megan Shields, Shannon Trailer, and several of our friends from the U.S. Attorney's Office have also helped, so I can't thank all of you enough. So let's give all of them a round of applause. And I have to recognize the chair of the committee, Erica Hives Johnson, our Chief Deputy U.S. Probation Officer. She was newly promoted. She thought that this would be her opportunity, this big promotion, to no longer chair this committee, but we have other plans, right, Chief?
That's right.
Sorry, you're not off the hook
It's a
here.
lifetime appointment.
But thank you so much for your leadership and all that you've done as well. Again, I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and I hope to see you all next year for our 31st event. We will be serving freshmen outside in the hallway, so I hope that all of you have the time to stick around for a minute and join us and just visit with us. So thank you all again for everything that you've done for us and for joining us here today. There being no further business for the court is now adjourned.
All rise.